Today we geek out about Kingdoms of Erden, King of the Mountain. Hey guys, what's going on? This is Lee from Geek City USA here. Today we're talking about a Kickstarter game called Kingdoms of Erden, King of the Mountain. And this is a game for 2 to 4 players, and it's a card game where you are vying against your opponents to either gain the most faction support or be the last man standing or woman standing. And we're going to take you over here to show you kind of how to play the game, what the rules are, and do a quick little run through for you, and then we'll come back and I'll give you my thoughts on the game.
All right, so this is Kingdoms of Erden, King of the Mountain, and the goal of the game is to either be the last person standing, in which case all of your opponents are out of cards, or you can win by having faction dominance. And faction dominance is having 35 points of a specific color. So for example, if you have this blue card in your hand, he is worth 6 points towards your 35-point faction dominance. Now, when you play a card, you can play it for its attack value. And if you do that, this would be essentially worth 6 points or have a 6 attack value. And it could beat anything that was a different color and a lower number. So for example here, based on the cards that I've displayed here, this red 7 could beat this blue 6. And if you do beat the current King of the Mountain, you get 3 reward cards, or you get to draw 3 cards as a reward. And then you can pick whichever one you want to keep. Like say you want to keep this one, put this in your hand, the other 2 would go back on top of the deck in any order. Okay, now there's also, you have the option to play your cards for their special abilities instead of for their attack power. In which case, if you look at this guy here, his special ability is when you discard this card, you may take only the top 2 reward cards or choose one of the top 3. So in his case, if he were to play on top of the current King of the Mountain, you would just take these 2 cards as his special ability. Just one thing to note is you only get what the special ability says. So if the special ability doesn't tell you that you can draw reward cards at all, then you don't get to take any replacement cards or any cards off the top of the deck. Some special ability cards let you modify attack values of other cards, and at that point you would still get to take the reward cards off the top of the deck because you actually use that for an attack. These wild cards here, if you look at just a few for example here, this one lets you reveal to look at one other player's cards at the end of your turn, and then you can discard this card to defeat any character card. So what this means is whatever character card is on top, you could first show this card to look at one player's card at the end of your turn, or you could discard it. So say this was the current King of the Mountain, you could play him on top, and that would defeat that character card. Now in doing so, you do not get to take any reward cards. So keep that in mind when you play a wild card. A lot of times wild cards are a last option to prevent from not being able to play a card. If you look here, in this case, the Dragon Slayer sword, for example, this is not only worth a wild card, but if it's kept in your hand, it's worth 7 points toward any faction dominance. So in this case, if I held these 2 cards and was going for blue faction dominance, I would have 13 points towards blue faction dominance. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So I'm going to go ahead and set up here real quick. I'm going to do a setup for a 2-player game just to give an example of how the gameplay works, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. All right, I've gone ahead and I set this up for a 2-player game. So in this instance, each player is dealt 7 cards. And then you flip over the top card, and this would be the current King of the Mountain. So now let's take us over this player here. We're going to take his turn, and we'll look at the cards in his hand. And so you've got a couple of wild cards. Let's sort this up a bit. We have a couple of yellow and a couple of blue. So now right here, at first glance, we would probably want to go for blue faction dominance and hold on to these cards because we currently are looking at 15 points right here, or rather 14 points right here versus 12 in the yellow. So with that said, let's take a look here. Current King of the Mountain is 6, so I can play see now this card, I could play this wild card, but if I play this, it would defeat that character card. However, I would have to give a card from my hand to my opponent. So I don't really want to do that. Now this wild card here lets me defeat character cards lower than 6 and wild cards. So I can't play that here because the current King of the Mountain is 6. And this one here, I like this one. So this is a potion table. It lets me defeat character cards lower than 9 and take a random card from one other player's hand. So I'm going to play this, which puts my card as the King of the Mountain, and I'll take a random card from my opponent, which turns out to be a red 6. And then we would go on to our opponent's turn. So now our opponent here, again, has a handful of wild cards, a red card, and a couple of yellow. So none of these wild cards give me an extra 7 points, which is fine. I've got a 9 red card, so I'm going to maybe hold on to that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play. There's no sense in playing this for the special ability because there's no faction card to swap this for. Again, really none of these special abilities are going to do much for me right now. So I would go ahead and play this. I am the current King of the Mountain. And then I get to draw 3 cards and pick one to keep and discard the rest. So I'm going to look, based on what I have in my hand, I'm going to want to take this red card. I have enough wild cards, and I want to try to build up towards faction dominance. So I'll put those on top, and it goes on to our opponent's turn. Okay, now I'm going to look here. I can't use these yellow cards because yellow is currently King of the Mountain, so I have to play a different color. So I'm still going to hold on to my blue cards because I still think that I can do something with that. So I'm going to play this red 6. And I'll go ahead and play this here, and I become current King of the Mountain. I can draw 3 cards. I get to keep 1, and we will keep this blue card, and we will put these 2 back on top. Now let's say, and actually this is a good example. So let's say that I didn't have these wild cards. I actually would not be able to defeat the current King of the Mountain, because this card is a 6, it's not higher than that. And then these are red factions, so I can't play that. So in that case, what you do is you give 2 cards over to whoever played the current King of the Mountain card. Being a 2-player game, it would go over to this. So I would pay tribute to the current King of the Mountain, so whoever played that card, they would get 2 cards. And then I would draw 1 card in return. And now if you look here, I'm down a card in my deck. So not only am I down a card because the other player stole a card from me, but I'm also down because I had to give away 2 cards and only got 1 in return. So as you see, that's how your deck starts to dwindle, or your hand starts to dwindle down, and if at any point you have no cards, you're out of the game. So then this player can continue on, and actually, since I'm the current King of the Mountain, this player played that card, he would go ahead and pass. You do not get a turn if you're currently the King of the Mountain. So then we would go back to this guy, and let's say he was just fortunate enough to draw a wild card. He would play this wild card and draw 3 cards. Keep 1, put those on top, and continue on. So now currently he has 17 points towards having red faction dominance. And versus, what do we have here? We have 17 points towards blue faction dominance. So the game would continue this way until one player either says, I have 35 points in blue, so I have faction dominance, game over, or if at one point that you have no cards left in your hand, you are out of the game, and whoever's the last person standing would win. And that's really how simple the game is. And this is, it's quick to learn, and it can be very quick to play, and it seems to be a different play every time. So I'm going to take you back up top, and we'll let you know my thoughts on this.
All right, guys, that was Kingdoms of Erden, King of the Mountain. Now, what are my thoughts on this? Now, let's start with the components quality. So, again, this was a prototype that I was sent. However, I will say that when I received this prototype in the mail, I was extremely impressed with the quality of it. The cards are very nice, very high quality, which really surprised me. I played a number of prototypes from, bare bones, just printed out on cardstock on a laser printer, all the way up to production quality or game crafter quality, which is all, can be very nice. And this was one of the nicer, if not nicest, prototypes I've ever received. That's definitely in the positive category here. So if the final production is anything like the prototype, that's definitely in the win category here. Now for the artwork is very crisp, very nice. I really like the illustrations. The cards definitely pop, so you can tell the difference between the different factions easily and at a glance. And the wild cards stand out separate from that. So as a whole, the art is functional, it's good to look at, and it serves its purpose well. As for the gameplay, so the gameplay here, again, this goes for 2 to 4 players, and the gameplay is surprisingly quick. Now, my first few playthroughs, when I was sitting down to play, I thought this is going to take, quite a while, because to get 35 points of a faction, in your mind, or in my mind, the first few playthroughs, as my cards are disappearing from my hand, because I'm either losing them to my opponents or I'm having to play them to avoid, losing my cards and giving them as a tribute to my opponents, I kind of came to think that there's never going to be a chance that I hit 35 points, and it's just going to be that I run out of cards and I lose or somebody else loses by way of running out of cards. But that is not the case. I've seen this game go both ways, where the last person standing, there's one person standing because everybody else has run out of cards. And I've also seen where somebody wins fairly quickly, even by hitting the 35-point threshold. And the games play very quickly. I've played a game in as short as about 3 minutes, and I've played a game 15, 20 minutes. So as far as game time goes, it's quite a nice window for, I guess, a light game or beer and pretzels game. Casual game. It fits that niche perfectly. Now, who is this game for? Now, I played this game with both people from my gaming group as well as with my kids. And let me say that this was a very easy game to pick up for my gaming group. They caught on right away, and we were able to play a number of rounds and a number of games. And I even was able to play this with my kids. My oldest son, who's 11, picked the game up right away and did very, very well with it. Had no problem catching on. And I even played this with my youngest kid, my daughter is 5. Mind you, we had to change some of the rules, but I could modify the rules because she can't do all the reading, and even she was able to play this and have fun with it. And the game was very, very well received. The game was something that, upon introduction, we played through a round, and it was quickly, okay, let's play this again. I lost, let's play this again. Because I think I can best you this time. And we've continued to play a number of games in succession during our playthroughs on this. So that to me was a very good sign. Now I think this game would be perfect, again, for the seasoned gamer, but I also think that this is an excellent game for a casual gamer or to introduce to families, because this takes a game, I've heard it compared to Uno in some ways, and yeah, it takes the elements of Uno and ramps them up to the next step to be a lot more exciting and a lot more involving, and just all around kind of takes it to the next step where it's still easy to understand and easy to introduce to people, but it adds an extra element of gameplay that makes it all the more enjoyable. So all in all, I think I would definitely recommend this game because it fits the casual gamer mode that will get them involved, as well as it can fill in the gaps for seasoned gamers, and it's a great family game as well. Again, everybody that I've introduced this to has had fun with this, and I've had a lot of fun with this. It's been a quick little pickup, and can get through a couple of games in no time and have a lot of fun. All right, guys, I'm Lee from Geek City USA. Thanks for checking us out. Be sure to like and subscribe or comment down below, and check us out on Facebook. Until next time, you guys take care.